Sherbert will do it to you, won't it? I didn't know I hadn't seen him like that all. I've been with him since yesterday. You've been saving up. God, he came alive all of a sudden. Don't tell anybody what we're doing. They'll ruin it. We don't want any civilians to get in here and start doing this. They'll get us on TV, we'll start making a lot of money, and then we'll get in trouble. I'd like to thank Chuck and his committee. I'm sorry y'all didn't get to stand up again tonight, because I thought, Chuck, make them do it again tonight. And I like Dave. Joanne, I'm praying for her, because Dave's raised to worry like I do, and he's very lucky to get a good-looking girl like that, because we knew it wasn't going to work out. My grandmother always says, just remember, save for a rainy day, and when it comes, you say, see there, told you. And make sure you think it won't work out, so when it does, you'll be surprised, like Dave, you know. But Leroy has taken good care of me. Thank God, we almost had a wreck, but outside of that, it's just because we stopped on the freeway. Outside of that, those other cars just didn't seem to understand it. We was trying to get over another lane, and we thought we'd stop where we were, and a few cars just did, you know. One of them ran the river, and a couple of things happened, but we came out all right. It was alcoholic, you know. And he got me my favorite food, and I don't think he even knew it. I just said, well, God, I don't know whether I'm praying right or not, but it's working today. We had to eat at some joint, Tony's or something, just terrible. Wasn't it? I called my wife and told her how bad it was last night. Told her I thought I might stay over Sunday and eat there again and be home a day late. It's always good to be with Dick. I know he and his wife, you had the wrong speaker here, but, well, you can't win the first time, you know. He and I have been friends for quite a while. And, of course, liking women better, I love his wife more, but... And Scotty, I was glad to hear an AA talk. Glad to see you got to watch it. Dick's AA talk. Got to hear AA talks today. They don't know AA talks anymore. I got off a plane in Alabama, and they said, you haven't changed your talk, have you? And I said, what do you mean? He said, well, we had one in here that talked to AA for about 20 minutes, then went into something else. And I said, well, I don't think I will, but I'm not too mentally in good shape, you know. I don't, never know. And I enjoyed our Al-Anon. I sleep with one too, you know. And she likes it. And I'm glad. I finally took me a while to find one that did, but and the night owl session last night, I thought, hell, they're never going to get to the women. My God, how many do we have? 7 men? I said, you know, they get you for, what did you call it? Harassing women? I said, hell, I'm going to sue them or something, for God's sake. Finally got to the women. You notice we fixed it up tonight here. Well, if I talk, anybody else I can talk about? If I left out everybody? I really have enjoyed. See, I like the small ones. We had one down in Brazos at a Baptist encampment. We didn't let the Baptist in, but we had it there. And you might as well get your room reserved this year, right now, if Clancy's coming, because it'll fill up next year, so you might as well get ready for it. Well, I am Jim Williams, now I'm an alcoholic. My sobriety date, August 28th, 1966. And the name of my group is the Glass House Group in Fort Worth. And that's the one you want to go to, and I created it. They've kicked me out a couple of times, but I'm back in now. And that's where you want to go when you come to Fort Worth. You want to come to see us. Damn, I wished I'd had thought of that new deal they got going, that new thing. Years ago, a guy by the name of Chuck Chambers from California used to come through and say, what controls you? And this new deal that they thought of, what's the name of it? Where they're making all the money out of that new deal. Where you like sex all the time. What is it? Codependency. God, I'd give it. Why in the hell didn't one of us think of that? We could all, just taking this room right here, we could have made fortunes all over the country because everybody's codependent on something. I'm thinking about having a nation, like McDonald's or something, just have quick fix deals where you, on the way home, just have drive-throughs. Drive-through fix them, Isn't that amazing? We are something else. There ain't no group of people like AA and Al-Anon. There's nothing like, I don't know how in the hell, we got to talk about a while ago, how did we make it this far? We did everything we could to destroy ourselves before we got here, and now we'd give anything in the world if we could wreck this damn thing some way, but we can't do it. Isn't that amazing? We go to Hazleton, tell them how we are. They write it down and put it in a book, and we buy it because we identify with it. I told my sponsor, I said, are we that sick? He said, yeah, we're that sick. Well, and I kind of wish sometimes it was my parents' fault, but I'm just afraid it wasn't. I'm just really afraid. I know that, what do you call it, Mel? What do you call it? Dysfunctional. All I know is my parents functioned one night. But my folks raised me to be, they didn't raise me to be an alcoholic. They raised me to be a Southern Baptist. Now, we're the ones, that pray for the Catholics. They drink, And, of course, the Presbyterians, they just knew it was going to happen. And the Episcopalians, they just got tired of being Catholic. And the Methodists, they just didn't like water. I think I'd like to be a Lutheran. They believe in doing everything just a little bit. In Texas, they have a bunch of dry counties, which means they don't do nothing. You can't drink, you can't sell it, you can't buy it, you can't do anything. In fact, the Southern Baptists wouldn't even allow you to dance because you had to hold women. They had a hard time having children. If they'd had that envelope deal where you mailed it, held in, and never touched a girl yet. And I was raised in this little old church in that little old dry county, and this guy standing up there just like me says, if you think it, you might as well have done it. Hell, I knew I must be thinking it before I even knew what it was, but I knew the way they was pointing at me, I must be thinking it. Well, I got to be about 13, which will happen to you if you do what I was doing one day at a time. And one afternoon after school, I got in the car with this girl, and we got to messing around, and I got those funny feelings. And so I told him about it. Said, we've been meaning to talk to you. Said, we've been praying for you. I said, yeah, I know you've been praying for me. What you need to do is get saved. I said, what from? Haven't done nothing. They said, now you meet us before the funeral service, and we're going to get you saved. So I met them, and we went in this room, and we all got out on our knees, and they just prayed. They said, now when they sing that last song, you come down that aisle and you get saved. So I waited and my throat hurt. And I came down the aisle. It's kind of like AA, except didn't give out any chips. And they hug you and kiss you and tell you how great you are. And I know I wasn't, but I liked it. Then they throw you in the tank and the handkerchief leaks and you choke a little, but you come out all right. Went to school the next day and saw that girl, came right back. I said, well, we're going to have to do it again. It didn't take. They said, no, you just don't do it. Well, they didn't know. I didn't know how to don't do anything. I didn't know how to don't do anything. I didn't know they could just say, don't do that. They didn't do it anymore. I said, well, how do you don't do it? Don't think about it. I said, I wonder why I didn't think about that. I thought, well, it's only 2 o'clock in the afternoon, so I'll just go ahead and think about it today, and then tomorrow when I get up, hell, I just won't think about it anymore. Got up the next day and thought about it more than I ever thought about it before in my life. I had no idea that I'm the kind of guy when I start not to do something, I'm going to do it all the time. And when I start not to think about it, that's all I'm going to think about. I used to try to wake up real quick before I thought about it. Finally got out of high school. I don't think I was so dumb. I was just always busy. You know, a guy walked by the car and he said, I spoke to you yesterday, he didn't even speak to me. I said, I was having a meeting. He said, but there wasn't anybody in there but you. I thought, hell, how many do you need? 30 miles away I had to go to summer school to get out of there, and 30 miles away I was already having trouble. I didn't fit in anywhere. I'd go with kids places I didn't want to go, and so they'd like me, and they never liked me enough. And I'd always get the wrong girl. My folks would say things like, Jimmy would never want to do that. Yeah, I did. Already done it once. Getting ready to do it again. Their biggest trouble is to say, Jimmy wouldn't be caught dead doing that. I said, wouldn't it be hell to be caught dead doing that? And everything they knew I wanted to do, I didn't want to do it. Everything they knew I wouldn't be caught dead doing, I already done it once. 30 miles away was this little town that was wild and wicked, and this Saturday, that's before I knew you could do it during the week. I heard about this town and how it was wild and wicked, so I got this buddy and we went over there and we opened the door of that honky-tonk, and my God, there was that deacon that I had seen all my life with a warm girl in one hand, cold beer in the other, and I said, my God, let's get out of here. He'll tell Jesus on us. And we didn't even get to do it. You know, if you get caught before you do it, you ought to forget it. He said, hell, he can't tell anybody. I said, listen, he's got a better shot with Jesus than we do. However, he was happier than I had ever seen him. And I liked the girl he's with on Saturday night a lot better than what he's with on Sunday morning. I always thought when I'd see him on Sunday morning, he looked sad. And I said, well, I assumed deacons are just sad. Now I know, hell, he's just tired. We had 2 beers, didn't taste good, didn't feel good, and I was glad to get out of there. Next day I went to Sunday school and church. First time I'd wanted to go, I said, maybe you get old enough, you won't have to go. There he was, sad like he always was, that I had my first spiritual awakening. Maybe you can do it a little bit and just don't tell anybody. God, I couldn't wait till next Saturday. I said, let's go back. His big town had 2 joints, went to the other joint, learned how to do everything but commit adultery. I'd have done that, but I didn't know much about it. And another thing, you drink a beer and think about it all day and drink a beer and forget it. Or if you do, you don't know where you did or not. I learned how to dance and learned how to drink. I didn't even know I knew how. You just drink 1 beer right after the other. Get the feelings good, kept feeling off. Learned how to dance. Fell down the dance floor, broke my nose first time. Did it 5 times after I learned how to do it. Blacked out, waked up the next morning, threw up just like I'd been doing it for years. This guy called, said, how do you feel? I said, God, I feel horrible. He said, oh, but you had a great time. And I said, oh, well. Then I knew how to have a good time. Just go out and get drunk, black out, wake up next morning, throw up. Then you know you had a good time. Did not know you drank it any other way. I thought people who didn't drink like I drank didn't drink. I see them now, they're putting umbrellas in them. I guess they don't want any rainwater to get in there or something. They was already putting fruit in the drinks I was drinking. Not mine. Too much acid fruit, you know. One Saturday I was over there by myself walking because I wanted to put off getting drunk as long as I could. Walked by this post office and there's a sign out there that said, we need you. And I walked in there and they did. They said, have you ever been to California? And I said, no, we're going tomorrow. I said, God, where do I sign up? I've never been but 30 miles away from home. Went back home, told my folks I was going to California, and they said, how are you going to California? You don't have any money. I said, I'm going to the Air Force. They're leaving tomorrow. Well, my folks look at me funny, but they let me go. I get over there, and we went send home. That outfit really operated 1 day at a time. It was a funny bunch. You get up in the middle of the night, make your bed real quick like somebody's coming. Never did. Then they want to go eat, still dark, middle of the night. Even if you hadn't been drunk, make you sick eating that time of night. And then they were always scared because they walked in groups. And whoever it was that was running our outfit decided we should make a surprise trip, which means if they didn't tell us where we were going, we couldn't tell anybody and nobody would know. And whoever it was running our outfit decided we ought to go to China. We're in the Air Force, so we go to China by boat. I think they flew the Navy over and the Marines ran the boat. There's a lot of Chinese over there. They had a few hills and some trees and some rice, but they mainly just make Chinese. They like it, and they're good at it, and they're not interested in doing anything else. They just make Chinese. They lose some, but they're making so damn many that it doesn't make any difference. Well, after you're there about 3 weeks, you've seen all the Chinese you'll ever need to see. So I told them I was ready to come back home, and we stayed 2 years. And we came back by boat. My folks says, where are you going to school? I said, hell, I'm not going to school. Hate school. Wouldn't be caught dead going to school. They said, if you don't have that piece of paper, you won't be able to even apply for a job, let alone get one. Every man coming out of that service is going to have that piece of paper. Well, I proved my folks wrong. I gutted that thing straight through 3.5 years, and I made sure I didn't learn one single thing. I made sure that every course that I took, I was going to pass it before I took it, and that it wouldn't benefit a human being whatsoever. You know what I like about you and I? We'll go to any length, even if it destroys us, just to be right. A lot of people won't do that. A lot of people say, I could be wrong about that. Not you and I. The only time you and I will ever use that statement is when we're damn sure we're right. Then we might say, well, I could be wrong about that. I was having some minor difficulties with women. If you put 10 pretty girls up there, I'll get the sick one every time. I don't know where I learned how to do that. I'd see some guys, they just go one girl one night, one girl next night, one girl one week. You can't do that. You got to make sure you got a pretty girl and one that you can take home and show your folks and be in love with, for God's sakes. You can't just go with any girl. The only thing that was bad about it and awkward about my deal is when you're walking around in love with no girl. Take me about 2 months to find that precious sick little thing. Then we'd be so much in love about 2 months, I'd almost have to quit work. Then it just deteriorated from there on out. When I got to AA, I thought, God, this is the greatest place I have ever been. It's the first time I'd ever been where they had the sick women grouped. And I like both kinds. I like the ones that got sick doing it, and I like the ones that got sick watching him do it. I was having some difficulties where I worked. It seemed like everywhere I worked, they always wanted me to come to work on Mondays. I don't have the flu on Thursday. I have the flu on Mondays. Monday's my flu day. And evidently, God wanted us to make sure that all businesses operated properly. And that's hard work. It took me a long time to notice all these people that were firing me are still operating and doing it wrong, which probably means most of us are too smart to be in business. Finally got out of a job and I couldn't get one. And the way I looked for jobs, I'd get up every morning, I'd throw up and I'd spray. And then I'd go fill out one of those forms that ask you personal questions like, where have you worked the last 10 years? Hell, it's none of their business. They even want to know where you lived. And I like to move around some. And it's people I used to live with like me to move around some. How are you going to remember all those addresses? Then the rest of those blanks you've got to figure out, wonder what they'd like for me to say. Don't know them too well, you know, and you've got to figure all that out, what they'd like. Then the interview lasts 5 minutes, and you go out and get drunk and just do that one day at a time. I saved this one place because I knew they had an opening, and I knew I'd qualify for the job, and I knew a guy there that was a friend of mine. I knew he'd help me get that job. And I went in there, and the moment I walked in there, he says, "You don't want this? Oh, my God, you don't want this job?" I said, "Yeah, I want the job, but either job. I've saved this place because I knew this was a place I needed to go to work." He said, "You don't want this job." Everybody knew what I didn't want. Everybody knew what I wanted. It's always the opposite. I also knew there's something about me he'd like to tell me, but he didn't know how to do it. I also knew they was going to like it better when I left. So I went out and got drunk, waked up the next morning, threw up. And I thought, you know, I've been doing this for almost 10 days. I think I'll just take the day off. Went out to the golf course, and ate no leg, no piece of toast. Went around to the beer joint where my last spiritual advisor worked. And he said, "God, you look horrible." I said, "Yeah, I think I'm coming down with something." He said, "My God, man, drink this beer. Well, you're shaking. I don't want anybody to have DTs out here at the golf course." I said, "Oh, I'm Baptist. We never drink before 10:30, and that's noon." He says, "Drink the beer." I drank half the beer and sprayed the golf course with it. I don't mind spraying if I don't lose my concentration. Start thinking about women or something, gets your nose and burns. Then you have to drink the rest of the day just to kill the pain. And I knew how, I don't meditate this deeply anymore. It would just be with me, God, and the commode. And you say, "Oh, God," and it's stringy. It's an after dinner talk, you know. And you don't know where the end is, and you can't breathe or you get it all back. So you don't know whether you're going or coming. And in the hot summertime, you know, it's tiring when you meditate that deeply. And you'd always just lean over there, and that bowl was always just as cool. I told this guy, I said, "I think I better go home and lie down. I think I'm really coming down with something. I think I better go." I didn't get to use those vibrators in motels till 2 years after I was sober because I used to vibrate all by myself. And I like to live with me. I'm supposed to call on hospitals. I'd get up in the morning, I'd say, "God, I hate to go out that big old hospital, have a hard time finding a parking place." And then when you do, you got to take that kit, go through the lobby and wind around through the basement. And you know that Percy agent, he's not going to buy anything anyway. See, you don't even have to park. Just drive right on by. Wait till 10:30 and go have a beer and said, "Didn't buy anything again today." I was living in Houston then, and I went home and I got in the living room and I decided what I need to do is commit suicide. Then these guys that didn't hire me would worry about it for the rest of their days. They'd see in the Houston Chronicle, "Jimmy Williams commits suicide," and they'll never get over it. But I didn't know how to do it. Now I see it on television all the time now. "Suicide, call that number." They probably got pamphlets. "Softer, easier ways." Or join our group. We're losing some, but we're gaining all the time. This was even before overdose was popular. We believe in being sound in mind and body when you commit suicide. I remember all three of mine. I didn't like guns because I don't like noise of the morning. And besides that, they splatter all over everything. Razor blades were popular then, but what do you do? How do you do it? All the thing they ever said in the paper was, cut his wrist with a razor blade. What kind of blade? Straight edge, single edge, double edge? Which wrist do you cut? You got two. Which way do you cut it? Cut it this way or that way? Nobody to call. I knew you couldn't do it in the living room. You get blood all over the carpet. And I'm always thinking of others. So I went in the bathroom where I did a lot of things anyway. Got my old double-edged razor, and I had sense enough to know, what if you cut the left wrist? Left side died, and right side be alive. What if you backed out, half dead and half alive? You know, we're not dumb. We just haven't done things before. So I cut both wrists so I could bleed and die evenly. So I'm sitting there on the throne, listening to the drip, and thinking about those guys who are going to worry about it for the rest of their days. And the phone rang. And I thought, What if where I'm going I'll always wonder who that was called? That'd be enough to run you crazy. So I put a Band-Aid on my wrist right quick. Answered the phone. And it was the police. You know, police have been trained by ministers. They'll stop you about 3 o'clock in the morning and say, come go along with me. I've never talked to one yet that didn't have personality change. You say, oh man, I can't go. I was supposed to be home 7 o'clock. It's 3 o'clock now. I have got to get home. Then they say, get out of the car. I say, by God, I'm not going. Then they really get upset. You have to pacify them and go along with them. This guy said, where were you last night? I said, I was right here. And he said, no, you wasn't. I said, how do you know? And he said, we was there. Then I didn't want to talk to him anymore. I'd already learned, don't ever talk to him about where you've been than you do. I said, well, what do you want me to do? And he said, well, you can either come down here or we'll come out there and get you. I said, I'll be right there. He said, if I were you, I'd pick up an attorney because you're in trouble, brother. I said, that'll take me an extra 30 minutes, but wait for me. I'm coming. God, I love to live with me. I can live a week and a half a day. I've had a hell of a day. Been out the golf course, threw up all over the golf course, come back, had a meeting, a big meeting, committed suicide. Now I've got to call an emergency meeting and it's only 11 o'clock. I had $36 left, which before inflation was plenty to start a new career. And I decided, you know, maybe I've been in Houston long enough. Maybe what I need to do is just leave town. I don't know that guy that called anyway. So I just put all the junk in the car, dirty clothes, clean clothes, quilt, blankets, just kind of leveled it out. There was just room for me. Had one piece of furniture, an old lampshade. I guess I was going to carry the light if I could find the plug. Stopped, mailed the key to the folks and took off and stopped by and got me a pint of bourbon just in case anything happened. Waked up the next morning, a little town by the name of Brownwood with $7. And I said, wonder how my folks are getting along. It's amazing when you know it's time to call home. So I called collect so they know it was me. They live in Fort Worth. So they said, what are you doing in Brownwood? And I said, oh, just riding around. They said, why don't you come by and have a cup of coffee? I said, oh, I believe will. I never shortchanged my folks. They're not going to get their money back. So I always gave them my very finest story. In fact, I got to listen to it, and it was so horrible, hell, I cried with them. I thought, my God, if I'd known it was that bad, I'd left Houston 3 years earlier. They said, well, Jimmy's honest, let him have 100. With 107, you can go into business, you know. So I knew I had to sweat that night out, so I sweated out. The next morning I got up, got ready to leave, and turned around to Annalee, and I said, Annalee, there's just one little thing I left out last night. When I was down there in Houston having all that trouble, I was drinking some. But I decided last night I shall never drink again as long as I live. You'll never have to worry about my being underfinanced ever again. And my folks looked at me just like a blank wall. When I got an A, I went back up there. I said, do you remember that time? She said, which one? Then she finally said, well, I think I remember. When you drove off, I turned around to John and said, what do you think? And he said, he's 33. He'll never live till he's 35. Well, I don't know where to go. Here I am. I got everything with me, and I'm rich. And I said, I ought to take a vacation, but I don't know where to go. And I remembered that I had helped a guy get a job in the Rio Grande Valley about 6 or 7 years ago, and I heard they had palm trees, and it was a fun place to go. So I thought, I'll just go down there. Stopped in a little filling station that sold beer. I said, how far is to Waco? And they said, 79 miles. And I said, let me have 3. I end up at the Rio Grande Valley. Have you been there? That's the end. If you can't find your bottom, it's down there. You can find it. They got a little creek. They even changed countries. They got a little creek down there. They quit, you know, and changed languages. And I finally end up down there, and he did not invite me. I thought he'd invite me to his home, but he didn't do it. He knew a drunk that was managing this old hotel, and they put me in this old hotel, and I never took my clothes out of the car, and I stayed there for 3 weeks. Every morning I'd get up, come down that old elevator, go across the street, get a short sock shirt, go back up, take a shower. Did it every morning for 3 weeks. And they finally hired me at this place where he worked. He was leaving anyway, but I didn't get his job, somebody else's. They hire you not because you're qualified, because people don't go down there. They come out of the Midwest, getting out of the snow in the wintertime, or people go down there hunting and fishing and playing and going to Mexico. So they hired me because I was breathing pretty good. Not good, but pretty good. And usually when I'd get a new job, I could get drunk and not drunk. And I'd work 7 days a week till I'd get up there and get in my place. I had a guy in my place. Took me 3 months to get rid of him. And I finally got him. It took me a long time for him to understand it. And I got in my place, and then I could settle down and get drunk. And one afternoon, I was just too tired to go straight from work home. So this manager came by and knocked on the door and said, "You know, we've been here almost 3 months. You need to get better acquainted." And I said, "Yeah. Would you like to have a beer?" And I said, "Oh, I guess one." He was a drunk, just like me. We had 2 other drunks, and we ran that thing for 8 years. Then he screwed up with some girl and got all the drunks that cleaned the house. I'm still trying to get married, and I figured out what my problem is. Being true to one girl is not working. Because then, when you lose them, it takes 2 months to find one, and you go through that awkward place. What I need to do is have a number one and a spare. And that's hard to do when you're drinking. You know, even the number one, you'd call and said, "You doing anything tonight?" "No, I'll pick you up about 7:30. Fine." And it might be 4 or 5 days before you get by there. And my weekends were like this. I'd get off, I'd work Monday through Saturday noon, and I'd jump in the car and go to the golf course, have a heavy lunch like a 6-pack and a cheese cracker, get drunk, black out, be home in bed, and wake at 6:30. Wake up 6:30, 6:45, 7 o'clock, dry mouth and all, and go down to my place at 10:30, 11, and close the joint at 1 o'clock. That's when we closed at 1. Then I'd just drive on over to Manor Morris, finish the evening, and eat a little Waverson and Cheris and throw it up, or sometimes I skipped it and drink a little beer Sunday and taper off into Monday, and sometimes I made it, sometimes I missed it. Well, this particular weekend, I was traded off with a guy. I didn't have to work on Saturday. And I'm over at number one's house, and sometimes we're just too honest for you girls, you know. I just happened to have never mentioned number 2, and it's about 11 o'clock, and I'm blacking out, and I just mentioned that I thought I might drop by and see number 2 on the way home. And evidently she hadn't heard about it before. And I said, "But I want to go to the bathroom," and she followed me in there because she wanted to discuss it right then. And you know, that's the wrong place to have meetings. You're supposed to have meetings out there where you got couches and beds and carpet, not in there where you got commodes and bathtubs. It's hard surface in there. It's a bad place to have a meeting. Well, I was blacking out, so I don't remember what happened. And I finally moved into a beautiful place, an old, worn-out, faded green trailer in an alley behind a motel. I had the rock yards a long time before we started putting them in. You know those weeds that come up those rocks? I'd say, "You'll never make it." And there I've already learned how to wake up in total fright in my own bed, let alone some other place. And I was laying there asleep, and something goes, wham! God! Jumped up, looked down, still had my clothes on. I said, "Oh my God, I bet I was going somewhere early this morning." And looked down there in an old white shirt and had blood on it. Blood makes me sick, you know. Then my head had 4 knots on it. My whole forehead had knots. Looked there and still had a little blood. I said, "Oh my God, I've wrecked my car. That's the police." You know those trailers, that little windows, you only got one door. And the windows you can't get out. Even if you hadn't gained weight, you can't get out of those windows. And that guy kept beating on that door, and I said, "Oh, it's the police, it's the police. I know it's the police." And finally opened the door, and my God, there's that 6'4", 240-pound Baptist preacher saying, "Come go along with me." And I said, "Preacher, I know I look like I'm ready, but I'm not ready. I don't know where the meeting is, but I'm not ready. I cannot make it. I can't make it. My head's killing me." I said, "I cannot make it." Looked out there, my car's parked funny, but it didn't look like it had been wrecked somebody else's car. He said, "Get in the car." God. I got in the car, and I'm in total fright, and I said, "Preacher," and he starts it up. I said, "I'm going to have a beer." He said, "There'll be no drinking before the meeting." I said, "Preacher, I've got to have beer. I'm not breathing. Preacher, I am not breathing. I'm not breathing." You know Baptist preachers don't give a damn whether you can breathe or not. So we drove up in front of her house, so I assumed the meeting's going to be there. Head is killing me. I mean, my head is killing me. And I walked in there, and she did look like she might have fallen in a bush or something. And I said, I have got to go to the bathroom. I went in there and looked in that mirror, and I'm going to tell you something. She won. I'll never know what really happened, what I think happened. I fell in that bathtub, and she stalked me. 2 weeks later, we got married. We got married in the First Baptist Church, so it worked. We got married at 10 o'clock in the morning, so there'd be no drinking before the funeral ceremony. I told her that since she had been married before and I was pure, that it wouldn't be necessary for us to invite a lot of people, but she could invite a few of her close friends. And so about this Friday night, I'm up again, blacking out around 11, and I start to call my friends. They said I quit around 3. When I start, she's already at the church, and I start across the yard, and here comes my beer distributor buddy, Grafton buddy, come out of there and stops me right in the middle of the lawn and said, I have got to talk to you. I've been trying to get a hold of you. You called me at 2:45 this morning. We're not here to see you get married. We're here because we don't believe it. And I'm going to tell you, as your best friend, you better think what you're doing. He said, the longest bet of all of your friends is 3 weeks. But I showed them. I hung it in there for 8 years. But my life changed. I had no idea how nice it was to get up and throw up in peace. I was always going to quit smoking because it made me gag in the morning. So I'd grab those cigarettes, grab that coffee, and go in that bathroom, lock that door, and she'd tell me what I was through that door. Then I'd have to get upset, go make the living, get drunk, come home and tell her what she was. We did that one day at a time. I finally told that. I went back to that preacher and I said, Preacher, this thing is not working. He said, you know what's wrong with you? You're missing the beauty of life. I said, yeah. He said, did you know the fruit trees are in bloom? I said, no. He said, what you need to do is go home and get your wife and drive up the valley and smell the aroma and look at the blossoms. I said, yeah. Went home, opened the door, and said, get in the car. She said, what for? I said, we're going to go look at the blossoms. She said, the blossoms? I said, yeah, we're missing the whole damn thing. So she gets to the car, and I'll go get a 6-pack, drive up the valley, see a sign that said, Matamar's 14 miles, turned left, went to Matamar's, switched tequila, blacked out, missed the whole damn thing. Lost that job, could not get one. I went all over the country looking for jobs. I went as far as Missouri out of the valley looking for jobs. God, I'm trying to find jobs everywhere. I always try to change professions. I don't have one, so I try to go into one I don't know anything about. That way you don't have to go to work too quick. Finally, a guy that was, if anybody drank and got drunk like I did, is this guy. We used to get drunk just identically together. We drank like we both drank the same. And he managed a drug company. So he asked me if I'd go to work for it. Would I like to? And I said, well, I don't know yet what type of work I'm going into. So I ended up going to work for him. And it took him about 6 weeks to ship me to West Texas, to the big city of Fort Stockton. There's 536 people live there. 36 of them were making a living. I joined the 500. And I'm supposed to stand, you know how Fort Stockton in West Texas got little trees out there about that high. You can see California on a clear day. I'm supposed to stand in the drugstore, hold a pad, it's got lines on it, and the pharmacist calls names out like ariomycin, and you're supposed to write all that down. Well, you can't do that moving. You just can't get it together. And he kept calling it out, and I kept trying to get it on there, and I couldn't do it. He said, God, man, you look like you're going to fly apart. I said, any minute. He said, well, take some of these. Now, this was before Valium. I understand Valium, both eyes crossed, and you walk straight. This was just Librium, which is absolutely nothing. There's nothing, little old bitty, two-tone green and black or two-tone green. There's nothing, absolutely nothing to them. Nothing. I took 2 of them, waited 15 or 20 seconds, nothing happened. I'm used to something moving or doing or burning or doing. Didn't do nothing. So I took 3 more. And my knees just went, huh. I said, God, I know how to weave. Now I've got to learn new stance. So I took Librium in the daytime. You know, y'all have ruined the drug business. I used to get them for nothing. It used to tickle me. He'd say, Jim, I'm a little short of 10 milligrams. 25 be okay? Be fine. See, they don't know we don't go by milligram. We just go by size. Same size. That's all we go by. If we're taking 5 of one, we take 5 of the other. And I used to get them for nothing, and all I wanted. They just give them to me. And finally, my days would be I'd take Librium daytime, beer at night. I'd always have one decision to make after the third beer, never before. After the third beer, I'd say, well, I'm going to close the joint or go home early. If I'm going home early, I'd go get a pint of bourbon, put it on top of those 3 beers in that Librium, and go home like you're supposed to go home, blacked out. My finest nights were when I blacked out right at the door. Sometimes I'd do it a little early, and sometimes I'd have to have one more drink when I got home. But that was my finest. I'm a good blackout driver. Never had a wreck blacked out. Bad drunk driver. I could hit stuff when it wasn't even moving. End up, there was a guy offered me a job back in Houston. I should not have gotten it, but somebody recommended me that hadn't seen me in 15 years, and I went back there and should not be doing it. Should not be It was selling chemicals and stuff to hospitals. And I never knew anything about that. Didn't know anything about in fact, that's one of the things I failed in high school was chemistry, which means we qualify to sell chemicals. So I end up back in Houston, and I last there. What's her name and I finally, that's what's her name number 1, finally had developed such a nice, sweet, deep hate for one another that we were relatively safe because the one that died first won. But it was best we have a 2-holer bedroom so we could sleep safely. So we set up battle on March 1st, 1965. And none of my customers saw me drunk till the day before Christmas Eve of 1965. And I played golf with these administrators and their in-laws, and I went by their house to meet all these people, and I blacked out right at the house. And I drove from one side of Houston to the other, blacked out. That's nothing new for me. And I ended up the next morning going and checked my car. I'd even quit asking it how it got back. It won't tell you, No new blood on it or no fenders wrecked. And I did the same thing I'd done for years if I'd been to somebody's house. I'd pick up the phone, call them back, and say, I sure am sorry about last night. Hell, I'm not sorry about last night. I want them to tell me what I did. They never tell you. They would just say, Jim, it was okay, you just got drunk. Drunk was getting to be a bad word to me. Nobody called me an alcoholic. They called me a drunk. And my best friends were saying, Jim, we can't have you at the house anymore. We like you, but you're drunk. And we just can't have a drunk over at my house anymore. Well, the only drunk I knew was that one town drunk in that little town that slept in the alley and had the wine, and I knew I wasn't doing that. But drunk was getting to be a bad word with me. So I looked, what's the name had gone next door. They're getting ready to have a Christmas Eve party. I picked up the phone, called those people back, and they called me a drunk again. And I guess I heard it on the radio. I picked up the phone book, I'm not an alcoholic, and look under Alcoholics Anonymous and call in a group. And this girl acted like she's glad I called. I should have known it, had the wrong number. And she said, somebody'll be right out. Well, I waited an hour, and nobody showed up. Looked in the icebox, had 3 beers, and I said, well, I'll just call them back, tell them I don't need them. Forgot who in the hell it was I called. About that time, the phone ring guy said, be right there. Before I could tell him I didn't need him, he hung up. I thought I'll just get rid of him. And here he comes, little old short guy with a pointed nose and a book under his arm, and I looked out the window, I said, oh my God, we're going to read that book and pray. I've not only been baptized, I've been rededicated 10 times. This guy didn't read the book, he didn't pray. I don't know what he said, and I don't know what I said. And about that time, what's her name came back in there, and he said, you want to go with me? Well, I didn't, but it's better staying with her. So I got in the car with him, and I said, God, he's not my kind of guy. I'm going off with a perfect stranger. I should have taken my car, even though his a little better. I know better than to go off with strangers. I don't know who in the hell this is. We hit that old 610 loop down there doing 50 miles an hour. And I said, I'll buy a beer. I don't want a beer. God, I knew it. I waited about 20 seconds, and I said, I'm going to tell you something. I've got to have a beer, and I've got to have one right now. Either let me off on top of this freeway, and I'll walk over there at that U-totem, or you take me over there. I've got to have a beer, by God, and I've got to have it right now. And besides that, it's 11:20. He said, can you wait till we get to the club? Oh, yeah, I can do that. I can handle total fright if I got a little light. It's when you got total fright and no light that you can't handle it. We drove over kind of a bad neighborhood. Drove up front of this old rickety-looking house. I said, God, is this it? He said, yeah. I thought, well, when I get some money, I'll help these folks. Walked in there, and some of the deacons were sitting over there talking about women in the stock market, and I found out later on they didn't know anything about either one. Had an old bar back there in the back with holes in the linoleum that they had on top of the bar, and the bartender, he didn't look a hell of a lot better than I did. It's a program of attraction, you know. And this little deacon said, mix him up a little milk and honey. I said, my God, what do you put in it? I never drank anything like that in my life. He said, well, you see, you're nervous. I said, hell, that's what I've been trying to tell you. And he said, and besides all that, you're used to sugar in your system from alcohol, and the honey has already been digested. I said, indigestion is not my problem. If you throw up right, you don't have indigestion. So I drank half of it, and it curdled, came right back up. He said, don't worry about it, we have plenty. I thought, hell, I'm going to put on a show for these guys, for God's sakes. One of the smart ones said, walk all you want to. Hell, I didn't want to walk at all. They just sat there and laughed and talked. Got a new animal in here today, and watch you going back and forth, drinking that sweet, sweet six. I hadn't had a piece of chocolate pie in 10 years. I thought, God, I can almost taste it now. God, it was about 4:30. He says, I think it's time we left. I said, yeah, let's go. I said, let me out a couple of blocks before we get to the apartment. I was going to slip in there and get my car and go get some bourbon because beer would not cut that sweet taste. And he said, don't drink anything. I'm going to pick you up in an hour and a half, and we're going to a meeting. I said, where? Right back where we come from. I said, my God, we were there all day. I said, well, let me out. So he let me out, and I walked, and here he comes, and back over there we go. It's kind of a funny bunch. I saw a few of them kind of hugging and kissing. The rest of them, they didn't act like they was too damn happy to be there either. Some guy got up and they said a little old prayer, and then some gal got up and talked 2 or 3 hours, and they just laughed. Wasn't a damn thing funny. Some guy got up and talked 2 or 3 hours. They said 30 minutes, but I know it's longer than that. And they'd laugh. I said, I'm going to tell you something. This is a sick bunch of people. And they all got up and held hands and said the Lord's Prayer, and my God, every one of them come alive. Every one of them started talking all at the same time. Not a single one of them listened. I said, I wonder how he did that. They didn't sing any songs or lay any hands on anybody or do any kneeling. They didn't do anything. I said, I'm going to keep my eyes open tomorrow night and see what he did. Then me and this deacon are standing back there at the door. Then I see the deal. Men and women laughing and talking, hugging, jumping in those cars and taking off. I said, uh-oh. As soon as you're here for a little while, you get to go to some of those apartments and have a little drink and talk about this damn thing. We went night after night after night after night. Nobody invited us anywhere. I said, I've got the only deacon that nobody can stand. One night, it doesn't rain in Houston, just falls out. One night it's just flooding. And this guy called me and said, I'll pick you up in 30 minutes. I said, it's raining. Did you ever go get a drink when it's raining? No, I'll be ready. One weekend, what's her name, had gone back to the valley to see if we had any friends left. So we've been going every single night, Saturday and Sunday, never missing a day. So I just turned down all the lights, turned them all out, pulled down all the shades, locked the door, had nothing on but the TV set and the old phone, just ring, 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 let it ring. Next morning he called and said, where were you last night? I said, I was right here watching television and I enjoyed it so much I may do it again tonight. He said, well, you missed it. I said, what did I miss? He said, I don't know. I said, wasn't you there? He said, yeah, but I only heard what I was supposed to hear. we'll never know what it was you were supposed to hear. I thought, my God, you've got to go every night. You'll miss it. We went every night. 3 months I got drunk. Every night, 3 months I got drunk. Every night, 3 months I got drunk. And that last time I sobered up all by myself. And I decided that I'm really not one of y'all. I'm just really not an alcoholic. And I've already heard you can't make an alcoholic out of one that's not an alcoholic. What's really been wrong with me is I've just always been underfinanced. And if I can get properly financed, then I can just tell them all, take it and shove it, and I can leave town. So I said, but the first thing I need to do is go back and do first things first. I need to go back and tell him, officially resign, and tell him, thank you very much, but I appreciate everything, but I'm just not one of y'all. Well, evidently I'd called him one morning about 2:30 while drinking. I doubt it. Very seriously. I think they'll tell you any damn thing, just whatever fits the picture. The meeting had already started, so I thought, well, I'll sit through one more meeting. So then I sat through the meeting, and here he comes. And before I could tell him I'm resigning, he said, don't you ever call me again. I said, God, I'm glad you said that. I never called you in the first place. They called you. And I'm going to tell you something that nobody will tell you here. Nobody likes you here. They don't invite us anywhere, and they don't know me, so it's got to be you. And I'm going to tell you another thing. If I had as bad a personality as you do, I'd go back to drinking. And you don't ever have to worry about my ever calling you again. If you were the last human being on earth, you will never, never hear from me ever again. And I left, and he didn't till the next morning. Then I called him, and he said, meet me at the club. And I walked in the club, and he said, get your coffee and sit down. They talk to you like a dog here, you know. He said, I'm going to tell you something about Alcoholics Anonymous, Al-Anon, Al-Teen, Al-Tot, and Al-Dog. There's absolutely no failure here. Never has, never will, impossible to, cannot fail. Nothing has ever, it has never, never, never failed. It can't fail. There's no way to fail. Provided you do exactly what we tell you to do, the way we tell you to do it. He said, now there's only one thing that you're going to get to do for the rest of your days. You're the only one that's going to get to do it. And this is the only thing, though, that you're going to get to do. You're going to get up every day and decide whether you're going to go our way of life or your way of life. This is the only thing you're going to do. And if you don't give an alcoholic a decision to make, they'll flounder on the same subject for years. So we're going to give you a decision to make this morning. You're either going to go our way of life or right back out that door. I said, I don't want to do either one. He said, I didn't ask you what you wanted to do. I asked you what you were going to do. I said, do you mean tell me you don't care whether I want to or not? Group doesn't care? And he said, not a bit. I said, well, if you'll make it perfectly clear at the group that I don't want to do it, then I'll do it. He said, well, first of all, we got to get some things straight. It's your thinking that's wrong. I said, how much of my thinking's wrong? We always start with all of it. Then if there's any good, we'll let you know. I said, you put a sign up there on the wall that says, think, think, think. And he said, that's for us. He said, now we're going to give you some things to do and some things not to do. The things going to give you not to do is going to change. The things going to give you to do, you'll just add to, then it's going to happen over here. I said, what's going to happen over there? We don't know, but it always happens. I said, I'm going to tell you something. I've been listening to you and listening to you and listening to you. You never listen to me. And I want you to hear me. I do not understand. He said, and that's it, and don't you ever forget it. He said, there's two things that you must remember every day for the rest of your life. No matter what's going on in your life, you do not understand. Then you'll have understanding. And when you quit trying to understand, then you can enjoy it. And the other thing is, no matter what your situation is, it's never the situation, it's never them, never her, never God. It's you that must become different. You must become different than you ever have before. I said, how do I do that? He said, oh, you can't. I said, what the hell you tell me for then? He said, that's what's going to happen to you. He said, now I'm going to give you the kicker. This is the very one thing that got you here. But it's also the very one thing that, should it not change, will be the very one thing that's going to keep you from getting all the things that God has for his children. As long as you know that you know, you'll never know. But when you begin to do what we tell you not to do and begin to know that you don't know, then you'll begin to know. I said, hell, you're crazy. He said, I know. He said, now the first thing we're going to do is learn how to not do something. And the first thing we'll learn how to not do is take a drink or a pill. He said, you know that card that I gave you? It has my number, 4 other men, no women on mine. He said, when you get squirrely, doesn't make any difference what time of day or night it is, you call one of those numbers. Definitely before you take a drink or a pill, you make that phone call. If you don't make the phone call, you didn't do it. Make the phone call. And this is what we're going to do every day. When you get up in the morning, first thing, get on your knees and say these words only. God, take me today and do with me as you see fit. Let thy will only be done in my life. Help me to definitely not take a drink of anything alcoholic or a mind-changing drug. Amen. Do not need to tell God what he has not done, nor what he needs to do. God can handle that all by himself. And then call me before you go to the bathroom. I said, why before I go to the bathroom? You may not need to go. I said, you mean tell me you don't think I've got sense enough to know when I need to go to the bathroom? He said, we'll find out. They don't give you a lot of credit here, you know. Before I got down on my knees, I said, God, you and I know he don't know. Hell, he's a Presbyterian. But we're going to do everything just exactly like he says, so when we get through this time, we can tell him to take it and shove it. Got down on my knees, said that prayer, made sure I needed to go to the bathroom, picked up that phone, called him. He didn't even ask where I needed to go. And I said, go to the bathroom, meet me at the club. I made the club, and he said, now I'll go to work. I said, I hate my job. He said, what's that got to do with it? I said, well, I hated it so much yesterday, I couldn't go to work. He said, what'd you do, sit in that chair and think? I said, well, till noon, then I went to the club. He said, you don't know how to go to work. I said, how? He said, go get in the car. If you'll write that down, we'll catch it. Then he said, and later on, when we learn more about it, we're going to do it more often. But in the beginning, besides that prayer of a morning, when you get in the car, you invite God in today. I said, how do you do that? He says, you say, God, I invite you in today. Oh, put that on the card, and then we got it. Then you got to go to work, of course. I don't know why they want alcoholics to work. And we shouldn't work till we're 65. And then come back to the club, and you know how they are. They're sitting down there, and you walk in, and they have to say out loud, because you're an idiot, go get your coffee and sit with us. Hell, I know to get my coffee and sit down. Then when you start to try to listen to what the hell they're talking about, then when you almost get comfortable, and then they say out loud so everybody could hear, it's time for you to go home and eat supper and come back to the meeting. Hell, I know to go home, eat supper, and come back to the meeting. Then after the meeting, he said, now go home and get on your knees by the side of the bed and thank God for the day. I said, I do not thank God for the day. It's been a miserable damn day. Hate you, hate God, hate Aaron, hate AA. And I said, I'm not going to be a hypocrite. He said, do you feel like when you pray to God that you don't mean it? I said, that's right, and I am not going to do it. He said, that has absolutely nothing to do with it. It's the action that you're taking that you don't know you're taking that's going to cause all the things to happen that you had no idea was going to happen. And all the things that you think have to happen will never need to happen. Because once you take the action you don't know you're taking, and all the things that's going to happen that you had no idea was going to happen, by the time all that happens, what you think have to happen will never need to happen. Well, hell, I understood that, for God's sake. I said, do you mean to tell me that God does not care when I pray to him whether I mean it or not? He said, not a bit. He said, God is never going to depend on you for your relationship with him. He's going to handle that all by himself. I said, do you mean God doesn't care? You don't care and the group doesn't care? He said, that's right. I just got in my car, went home, locked the door so what's his name couldn't get in there. Got on my knees, said, okay, by God, thank you for a miserable damn day. Amen. Hell, if he don't care and they don't care and God don't care, hell, I don't care. Did that for about 2 months and didn't do anything any different this day than any other day. And I hit that old 610 loop down there in Houston that morning about 9:15, and this God that I had never known as my friend moved into that car with me. And for the first time in my life, I knew him as my friend, and I knew something different than I'd ever known it before. And I knew I would never need to take another drink of anything alcoholic or mind-changing drug unless I myself insisted upon it. And I knew it. God stayed with me all that day. I thought, man, the rest of my life's going to be just like that. About 3 o'clock that afternoon, I said, man, I think I'll get me a tent and some tambourines. Old Oral and Billy better look out, because Jimmy's coming. Man, I might even let him go. After I become the leader, I might let him go by and fix up the tent. And I couldn't wait for him to get back. He's 15 minutes late, and he walks through that door, and I said, get your coffee and sit down. Now, they don't like it coming back at him. But he did it. And I took him in another room, and I got right on top of him, and I let him have it. Told him the deal, and I stood back, waited for him to make me the leader. And he grinned just a little and said, thank God we've got that over with. Now we can get started. I said, my God, that took a year. He said, some are sicker than others. I said, what are you going to do with old what's-her-name? He said, my marriage, we're leaving it just like it is. He said, I'll send you to a guy that's got his all worked out. And he sent me to an Episcopalian, and they don't know. And this guy said, well, what do you really want? I said, I want to find it. They tell me everything here, I can have everything. I want to have everything. And I'm going to tell you what they're doing to me. I said, me and old what's-her-name are not sleeping together, and we haven't for years. And we hate each other. And I've been praying for somebody to sleep with her, and nobody will. And I said, I have already got the girl that I know is exactly my girl. I know it. If I've ever known anything in my life, she's absolutely perfect for me. The chemistry's just right. And she's been sober almost a month. And they won't let me go with her. He said, do you remember when you got into Alcoholics Anonymous? You didn't fit in here and you didn't fit back out there? I said, yeah. You felt like, even though you weren't alone, you were lonesome because you felt like you were the only one that was going through that period? I said, yeah. He said, if you're willing to go through those lonesome periods in every area of your life, I'll not only guarantee a relationship with a woman, I'll guarantee a relationship with men and women you could never have imagined. And I'll give you a bonus on top of that. I'll guarantee you a relationship with Almighty God that you could have never dreamed of. I said, I don't believe that. He said, isn't that wonderful? You don't need to. I said, what do you mean? He said, it's the action. I said, I've already heard that. He said, well, now you're still married? And I said, not really, just legally. We're not really married. He said, well, we're going to practice on her. And said, in the beginning, since you don't know how to live with anybody, this is where you'll learn. And you'll either end up with her or somebody else, and nobody knows. But you'll have it if you stay with this deal long enough, if you really want it to change enough. He said, what we're going to start doing is you're never going to tell her what's wrong with her ever again. I said, who's going to tell her? He said, I don't know, but you're not. And you're never going to do anything to work her around, to get her, we're going to use Al-Anons or friends or children or anything, to work her around to get her to do what you want her to do. I said, never. He said, never. And you're going to pray for her. And I said, I'm not. You pray for her. He said, now you're going to learn this prayer because you're going to use it for the rest of your days in relationships with people and other things. And so you're going to practice on her. You're going to say this, and you may have to say it 100 times a day in the beginning. God, thy will be done for her as well as for me. Take our relationship, let it become what you want it to be, and show me the truth. I said, I do not want God's will to be done for her as well as for me. He said, remember, what you want has nothing to do with it. So I started doing that prayer, and God, I got doing that prayer and praying. Hated it, but I did it. I said, God, you know I hate this, but I'm going to pray it. I had to do it that way at the beginning. And then finally, nothing happened between me and her, but that old sex, love, lust. I finally told him, I said, you ought to take her to Al-Anon. He says, my wife's already been taking her to Al-Anon. And Al-Anons, I want you to know that I love you. Call me day or night if you ever need me. They took her to you, and she found you depressing. And the more she went to you, the more she found you depressing. Whatever you're doing, keep doing it. And I want you to know I love you, and I sleep with one now. But anyway, we end up, that what surfaced with me was an old sex, love, lust thing surfaced, and I've got it. Now I always thought I just needed to change women. And now I know I knew what it was, and I couldn't get rid of it, and I told him, and I told him, and I told him. 2 or 3 times a day I'd tell him. And I couldn't get rid of it. God would not remove it. And they told me he would. I went to the meeting and told one of the girls in the meeting, and they said, you're not supposed to say that in the meeting. So I went over and told another meeting. And one of them stitched on me, you know, we don't gossip, we're just concerned. So this sponsor said, you know, usually when you stop doing something, just like when you stop drinking and taking pills, God transforms your mind. And that's what we're going to go through, is many transformations of mind. And for some reason, when you stop acting on that, God did not remove that and transform your mind. Evidently, you've got to do that different. And we're sick and tired of hearing about it. Oh, what's your name's out of town? You go back, lock yourself in that apartment. Don't you call me. Don't you call anybody till you and God get rid of that. See, one time they want you to call them all the time. Next time they don't want you to call them all. Hell, they never know. I went in that old apartment, locked myself in there, and I stayed in there all that day and cried and prayed. About 11 or 12 o'clock, I went to sleep, and the next morning I went up, and that thing was gone. I went to 4 meetings. I thought, hell, I'm not even going to tell them. After the 4th meeting, we all went out to ice cream. We were sitting around the table, and I said, well, I guess I might as well tell y'all. They said, oh, we knew it the first night. I said, why didn't you tell me? He said, well, you need to know that you're going to always be the last to know. I said, why is that? He said, we don't know. Well, she and I ended up getting a divorce. After my sickness was gone, you know what we had? Nothing. You know how to get sick? Make something out of nothing. And then I married me a good southern religious Baptist that didn't know anything about alcohol and never was around alcohol. And I knew that had to work. AAs didn't think it would, but I knew. And it looked like we was doing okay, and then we grew apart. And now I finally got one that I didn't choose. They won't let you choose anything here. I knew, and I explained it to them, that she would not work, and that she's a Catholic, she's a Yankee, she's an Al-Anon, and there's 3 places already that it's not going to work. And much to my disappointment, it's worked. And I've had the last 4 years, it's been the greatest years of my life. Wouldn't you hate to have missed it? What if we'd have missed it? God, I hope if there are people if you haven't been here long enough, you know, now it's mixed up with so many different things. Everybody started making money out of us, but it's mixed up with so many different things that I hope you can stay here long enough if you haven't found out that this is it. This is it. My life and your life is living proof Absolutely. There's not a person in this room that's not supposed to be here. There's not a person in this room that hasn't been chosen by Almighty God to live this way of life. And if you haven't found that out, you need to stay here long enough, because that's it. You see, we don't use counselors. We use the master counselor, God himself. We use the master teacher here, God himself, our only teacher. Isn't it wonderful? You know how you qualified for that? Nobody could ever tell you anything. Isn't that wonderful? It's the greatest thing it ever happened to you. God, nobody, human being, can tell you anything. Why? God doesn't want it. God wants to tell you. He doesn't want somebody else to tell you, because somebody else doesn't know. No human being knows for you except God himself. No human being. You and I have gone to the place that people spend money, tons of money, looking for. I've talked at a Baptist church, and this Baptist preacher had been out there trying to find it from Shula. I don't know where either one of them had it or not. He didn't get it. And he's back, and I couldn't give it to him, and I knew he didn't have it. I'd say a few things to him, and I talked to his church, scared them to death. You know, they just act like, oh my God, where'd he come from? What are you going to tell them? If y'all will get out and have car wrecks, shack up, get in jail, do a bunch of stuff. How else are you going to tell them? There's no way you can tell them that that'll happen. No way to believe that that's going to happen. See, what's happened is, you and I were sent by God here. You and I properly prepared ourselves by doing what God's people have to do. See, I've heard it. I heard it in that Baptist church. I heard it. I'm not knocking any of the churches. I heard it all my life. That I am nothing without him. Well, how in the hell are you going to know yourself to be nothing unless you become nothing? And you and I did that. You and I became nothing. It's painful and it hurt. But you and I, how are you going to know God? One way only. Know yourself to be helpless. Know yourself that when you work it out, it doesn't give you what it should. To be willing then to let God work it out. See, there's never any situation that's created in my life where it appears I created or somebody else that's for only one purpose only. And that's for me now to go through the process of letting God work it out. And whatever God needs to do with me during that situation or circumstance is his business. And it's up to him to work it out. Because I now have the way of life that God himself is going to determine my life and give me the life. And you and I have no excuse anymore. Has nothing to do with our past. You see, you and I are living proof, because you and I know the difference of being in darkness and being brought from darkness to light. Because God reached down and picked us up out of that darkness. When you got ready, when you did your part of getting to the failure and getting to the helplessness and becoming nothing, then God said, you're ready for my kingdom. And it said, and the Christians should tell you all the time, God has a place prepared for you. And he did. Hell, you were here. I was out there running around, getting married, getting drunk, going to jail, having car wrecks. You said, as soon as you get ready, we'll be waiting for you. I didn't even know who you were. I found you not looking for you. Isn't that amazing? Did you have any idea? You thought you was out there supposed to be having children, get educated, and being independent and being self-sufficient. God's children cannot be sufficient. If they are, they don't need him. You and I proved ourselves by what? Failure. Then when we failed, now we can win. And when we gave it up, then we can get it. Isn't that amazing? But what's the difference is, see, I know a few things today. How do I know those? I stayed with you, and you let me See, somebody was talking about a sponsor last night. What I want and what I need and what God set up for me is I'm to get the guy that knows for what I need to not do and do on a daily basis for God to sponsor me, for God to work out my life, not from advice from him. He's crazy too. God has proved without a shadow of a doubt we're his. You and I call a crazy person every day to find out what not to do and do. Well, he don't know. Hell, he's as crazy as I am. So that's living proof that when he calls and I call and we don't know what's going to be said, God's going to let him tell me what I need to not do and do that day. And God said, you know that it's me because he just got out of the nut house. Isn't that amazing? People go do and work and try and see anytime I go somewhere else for God to work out my life, then I've said, God, I can work it. I'm going to go pay somebody to work out my life. And God, you know what he says? Help yourself, I'll wait for you. And you know what he does? He doesn't go with me, he waits for me. See, I need to know that God is my God and that I'm in the place where God himself will work it out. And see, I know that today. I know that without a shadow of a doubt, I don't know whether it was before we were born or afterwards, but I know without a shadow of a doubt, God chose you and me. I don't know about other folks because they don't talk to me like y'all do. But I know about you and I. I know a few things about us and just can't wait to know some more. Because we're going to know some more. And I'm on the track. I'd love to be on that track. Get off of it, but I'd love to be on it. Ooh, it hurts when I get off and then I get back. And I like to get off because then I know I need to get back. We're the only people I know of that says, if we went tomorrow, Monday, when you go in and say, let me tell you what I've got. I just went to a place today and they told me that if I'll do what they say and not do what they say, that Almighty God himself will come in and be personal to me and work out my life and give me everything I've looked for. They say, my God, isn't that wonderful? And you say, well, I'm not too sure I'm going to do it yet or not. I know, when you and I, not intentionally, not thinkingly, you and I try to destroy ourselves and anyone who would go with us, and we couldn't do it. And the only reason we couldn't do it is because God had us chosen to be his and had us in the palm of his hand all the time. And he brought us here. He prepared you to be there when I got there. And I know today that I was never to, nor could I ever fit into this world for one reason only. God's children are not to fit in the world and cannot fit in the world, because God's children are supposed to live in the kingdom that he creates. And this is where they're supposed to live and not live as a part of or fit into the world. And that happened to us. We live in that kingdom now. We live in that. I know my sponsor said, we've got a special bond here you're going to notice. Well, that's better than saying we all are now controlled by God's Holy Spirit. Because he knew if I heard that in the Baptist, I'd say, I've already heard that. So he called it a bond that you and I have. And without a shadow of a doubt, we live today where God's children are. See, I could have gone to 10 different, I'm not knocking churches. I go to church today. And they're helping. I can't help them much because they don't want it, you know. And I pray for them. Hell, they may make it. I doubt it, but maybe we can get up there and help them in. Just say, God forgive them. They just never did catch it. And they say, you can't explain yourself to them. I've tried it. I said, I hurt. And they said, oh yeah, everybody does. I said, no, I hurt, damn it. They don't hurt like we hurt. When they got to hurt a little bit like we hurt, they quit. We like to go where it hurts. We like to go where you can hear the blood dripping inside. I got to think about that church wrong. But the thing that I need to know, I know. I've been able, and you don't see. And another thing about this, I can never go for these promises, because if I start to work for the promises, I'm working for the wrong thing. I need to go to where I'm going to lay myself out and go through the situations where I'm just laid out there on that flat rock, squirming, and be willing to go through that rock crusher. And when I get on the other side, God gives it to me, whatever it may be. Because, see, it never can be what I think it needs to be because I see it somewhere else or think what it is. Because by the time I get to where it is, I'm not the way I was when I saw it before. So I can never know what it is till I get there, and then I've got it, and I don't know how I got it, because I'm not the way I was when I saw what I needed. And then when I found out I had to give it up, then when I gave it up, I got it, and then I don't know how I got there. And once I do that, see, because I'm down here, and I know I can't get up there. Then when I get up there, I don't know what in the hell happened here to get me up there, because I'm not thinking about it as I was when I was down here, because it's been a transformation. Now I'm up here, and I can't ever get back down there to see how I did it. You could call it a mystery. I just think there's a possibility that some of it we're not going to know. But see, I'm never to know nor try to work anything out. I'm supposed to lay myself out there, and the more I do, some people call it surrender, but I can't do that either. See, the things I can't do the things I need to do the things that needs to happen. I have to let Him take me through things before I can surrender. The way I surrender is I run into the wall, crash, and come back up here, regroup, run into that wall, crash, come back up here. Then I'll get up, and this time I go full steam and crash and come back, and then I say, well, think I'll give that up. We need to dance. But what? I'm so grateful that I stayed with you long enough to know that I know a few things. I'm anxious, as I said before, what I'm going to get to know. But you and I are in the place, without a shadow of a doubt, that I know. And I know God is my Father today. And I've enjoyed being with Him as my Father. And what my parents were had nothing to do with me. He just used them to get me here. And that He is my only Father, and I can enjoy Him more in the last 3 or 4 years. I've enjoyed being with Him and hated Him, and enjoyed being with Him and hated Him. But these last 3 or 4 years, driving in that car, I drive a lot because I travel. I love to be in there with my Father who contacts me and is with me. And I've got a way to do it because I'm living like He wants me to live. And He got me to living like I want to live. And my mind still goes crazy, still has crazy thoughts. But I can now enjoy being with God my Father. And to know that things that used to be are gone. And everything He said, things that will become as if they never were, has happened to me. Today, I'm married, to my knowledge, the first time. My other 2 as if they never were. Even though I can remember them, I can't relive any of it. I went by one of my old houses the other day and could not visualize myself being in that house. See, you can't do that for me, nor can I do it for you. But I know the way for God to do it for you, and you know the way for God to do it for me. So see, you and I are in that place that God has sent us. You and I are in the place that Almighty God brought us to and prepared for us without a shadow of a doubt. All you and I need to do on a daily basis, and it's not going to be easy. It's going to take everything we've got on some days just to do this and not do anything and go to that meeting. But you and I are going to be transformed exactly what he says into his image. And you and I are going to be brought together, transformed individually. Look what he did. He brought us from every walk of life and didn't leave a one out. He brought us together so he could bring us together and transform our lives and send us out there to do what he wants done. And 90% of the time, we're not going to know what that is. Isn't it amazing? God, where we are. To know we know where we are. Not long, because we'll think in the morning. But to know that I am in the place where I'm supposed to be right now. And I'm with the people that God has chosen to be with me and me to be with them. And to have you ready. Thank God I stayed with you long enough. You see, because I now live where you live. I live in the only people that have the power. God's children are the only ones that have his power. Nobody else has got it. Only, I don't know who, maybe everybody's his children, I don't know. But I know that you and I live in that only one power that wins over everything, that has the power that overcomes everything. And we've got that way for that power to come into it without a shadow of a doubt. And we live there today. Thank God I stayed with you long enough to feel that power and to begin to know it. Just like it's been here this weekend. When I can feel God loving me and me loving him, but the difference was you. You are the difference. You're the one I had to be to. It was you and you only that God had prepared for me and was going to send me to be. And once I got with you, that power began to work and transform my life as he transformed you. And it never fails us when we call one another, when we meet together, when we invite that power into our life. It never fails us, just like we did this weekend, when we can feel that power, just like it is right now, when I can feel you loving me and me loving you. Thank you very much.